Okay, so welcome back from the break. It's still Healthy Morning live on Hstv. Again, my name is James Yofukwesi. To remind you, we have all our social media platforms active. This is where we're doing all our live streaming. So moving right there, share your comments and thoughts in line with the stories we'll be discussing right here. So now this is the Matters Arising segment. As I stated earlier in the intro, we have a lot of people making the stories, politicians popping up. We have some health stories right there. So we'll move into our first paper for today. That is going to be the Daily Graphic. So right here on the banner headline, it says the country reaches staff level agreement, supports government to implement IMF deal. That's the finance minister to Ghanaians. So that is, we had a press coming in from the Ministry of Finance where he was talking about the support for the IMF and also talking about this, let me say, taxes that are going to be reduced on Ghanaians. You know, sometimes we have Ghanaians coming in saying, complaining that they are being burdened by taxes, but now coming in from the Minister for Finance, that's Mr. Mohammed. He's saying that this time around these things are going to be brought down, taxes are going to be cut down. It's not going to be like it used to be. But now this time around, he says government supports government to implement IMF deal. And moving on to other stories, it says after 8 months delay, ministry takes delivery of health commodities. You can read our story on pages 12 of the Daily Graphic. And on to some health stories, it says antibiotics abuse threatens antimicrobial residents. That's coming from Prof. Sampani Donko. And on to the other side, it says two die in youth and Navy clash. So we'll move into that story to have an idea of what is happening right there. So the Ghana Armed Forces has issued a stern warning in response to recent attacks on its installations and personnel, stating that any further aggression will be met with appropriate action. This caution follows a clash between the youth of Tema, Newtown, and naval personnel, so resulting in a tragic death of two individuals on Saturday. So the incident unfolded on the evening of Friday, April 12, 2024, during a street procession organized by the youth as part of the annual Hstv festival. So tension escalated upon reaching the street in front of the Eastern Naval Command, leading to a confrontation between the youth and the naval rating on duty. So amidst the altercation, a group reportedly targeted a vehicle belonging to the Eastern Naval Command of the Ghana Navy, causing significant damage. So in a statement released by GAF on Saturday, April 13th, it said that three Navy personnel on board the vehicle suffered severe injuries and were taken to the Tema Naval Base Medical Center for treatment. So GAF also reported that a mob attack, that is the Tema Naval Base and the Naval Barracks at Tema Newtown on Saturday, resulting in property damage. So GAF expressed its condolence to the families of the deceased and issued a warning to the youth of Tema, stating that any further attack on our installation or personnel will be met with appropriate response. So this is coming in from the Ghana Armed Force in line with the clash that happened in Tema, where they were celebrating their Hstv festival. There was some misunderstanding. Unfortunately, we had people losing their life and also two people injured. So moving away from the Daily Graphic, let's move into our next paper, that is the Daily Guide. And right here, still talking about the clash that happened in Tema, I said Tema Youth Navy clash. And on top it says MOH class 14 essential medicine containers from port. And on the other side it says Kwabena Boateng wins a Jesu MPP polls. Now coming down again, it says JK Hogo Transport wins Total Energies Award. You can read our story on page 6 of the Daily Guide. And lastly, on the front page of the Daily Guide, it says Rotary International honors at Dampare. We can see the picture right there where he was being honored. Now let's move on to the next paper. We have the Daily Dispatch. And on top it says, vote for me to push elections to a runoff, and I will support party with less MPs, coming in from Samankra to swing voters. And down here it says a zipline heads over 500,000 medical delivery milestone. That story can be found on page 1 of the Daily Dispatch. And now moving into other stories, it says I commend Baumia for taking such a clear stance on anti-LGBTQ+. That is coming in from the National Chief Imam's Aid. And on to the next paper, we have the Daily Searchlight. And down here it says car dealers challenge Baumia over flat rate tax. And on top it says J.K. Hodge Transport wins Total Energy Most Reliable Transport Award in 2023. And on top, still talking about the clash that happened in Tema and the Ghana Armed Forces, says Navy slaughter 2, injured 3 festival celebrant. And down here it says Farouk Aliyu Mahama confirmed as MPP Yendi parliamentary candidate. And down here again it says John Mahama exposed over ignorant and malicious high number of taxes comment. And lastly, right here it says 2023 Stimovation winner leave for Japan. You can read our story on pages 9 of the Daily Searchlight. Now let's move into the Chronicle. We still have some stories trending right here. It says 74 more projects included in government performance tracker. So we all know about the tracker that was being launched, and we still have some people criticizing, saying that it's really not necessary. The government at this point in time saying that they're going to bring in trackers to let me say weigh or talk about the performances from the ministers and also the government in power. We still have the opposition coming in saying that they bring in the tracker acts at this time is really not necessary. Are you trying to tell us that we're going to get checks and balances at the latter part of the governance of the NPP? So we still have people criticizing, say that there's no need for the tracker coming in. And now here, coming in from the concerned teachers, they are saying female running mate will help break the eighth. I don't know what you think about it. Do you think we should have a female running mate coming into power this time around? Already we have the NDC coming from Mahama, where we have Madam Jane going to be the running mate for John Dramani Mahama. And we have the concerned teacher saying that if this time around we have a female running mate, it's going to help break the eighth. Now let's move on to the other side. It's talking about the Ghanaian Observer. And right here it says, IMF scores Ghana high on economic management. IMF scores Ghana high on economic management. And on the other side it says, Kandapa bemoans West African insecurity. And down again it says, a teacher group advocate for women as MPP running mate. And down it says, minister charges contractors on a GARD project to work overtime. And lastly, right on the front page of the Ghanaian Observer, it says Rotary International honors Dampari for quality leadership. Now let's move on to the other side of other papers. That is the Daily Analyst. They are saying without fear or favor. Again, it says clash at Tema Newtown. Ghana Armed Force warn against attack on personnel and installations. And on the other side, it says Iman slams government over performance tracker. As I stated earlier, we have the government saying they are introducing a tracker that is going to be more like a checks and balance to government and also ministerial works to find out if they are working according to plan and also the promises delayed to Ghanaians if they are on track. But coming in from Iman, and they are slamming the government over the performance tracker. Now down here it says renaming Ameri Power Plant disgraceful. Lembele MPs fires at government. And down here again it says pursues in Koso mining. Concerned farmers angry at Dentra Hima. And down here it says Kwabena Boateng wins a Jiso MPP primary. So we had the election that went on, and now we have Kwabena Boateng winning the Jiso MP. We all know we lost, one great man, that's John Kuma, and the elections were supposed to be done for someone to filling the position, and now we have in Kwabena Boateng winning the Ajiso MPP primaries. And lastly, on the front page of the Daily Analyst, it says Total Energies Awards 2023. J.K. Hogg Transport win Most Reliable Transport Award. Now moving on to the other side, we have the New Crusading Guide, and we have this Chinese woman, let me say, treading on all of the newspapers running here. It says, court chases a Chinese woman with arrest warrant. So we all know about a land in Cantonment where we've seen her own most of the properties. And now this time around, it looks like the government has placed their hands, and also we have the court coming and saying they are chasing this woman with arrest warrant. And on top it says Farouk Aliyu Mahama confirmed as MPP Yendi parliamentary candidate. You can read our story on page 10 of the New Crusading Guide. And now moving on to Alan Tremonti, and this time around he has something to say about taxes. He says unnecessary taxes to be abolished. Alan Tremantin promises Guta. And down here it says the world cannot be safe if West Africa remains unsafe. Coming in from Honorable Kandapa. And down here again it says IMF confirms Ghana's economic revival. IMF confirms Ghana's economic revival. And lastly, it says Rotary International confers a prestigious Paul Harris Fellows medal on IGP. I'm taking that story again. It says Rotary International confers a prestigious Paul Harris Fellows medal on IGP. And on to the other side of the paper, we have the custodian. So this time around, still talking about the International Monetary Fund. It says IMF lauds government for economic recovery. IMF lauds government for economic recovery. And on top side, it says arrest warrant for Chinese Iron Lady and first order over cantonment lands. You can read a full detail on page 2 of the custodian. And on the other side, it says it's crucial to work overtime. KON2 GRID project contractors. And down here it says support domestic initiative against insecurity. Kandapa urges Western partners. And down here coming from HIV patient to Akufo-Addo, it says save our life. HIV patient to Akufo-Addo. And moving on to the other side, we have the anchor. They are saying revealing the truth. Now it says NDC bigwigs run from cooked GMPC scholarship list as election year dirty campaign hots up. Again, it says NDC bigwigs run from cooked NGPC scholarship list as election year dirty campaign hots up. And down here, Kaswa missing manhood false alarmist jailed over and others fined and bond. So we all know about the stories coming in from Kaswa where people complain about their manhood being missing. So there's a false news coming in, and we have the alarmist being jailed and also others being fined and bonded. So if you are trying to bring out information, make sure that these things are accurate and right, because we have Ghanaians that jump into the stories saying a whole lot of things about it. But finally, we have people who've been jailed, some people being burdened, and also some people being sent to prison for bringing in the false alarm. Now, the last story on the front page of the anchor says, Lands Ministry Yana to launch Green Ghana Day tomorrow in Tamale. Lands Ministry Yana to launch Green Ghana Day tomorrow in Tamale. Now let's do some stories on the Daily Post. The Daily Post right here says Mahama celebrated at Africa Heritage Award in Lagos for his exemplary leadership. And on top it says tell us how much you spent on fraudulent and useless performance tracker. This is coming from a Park 2 government. And down here again it says NDC to file out TR request over missing Electoral Commission laptops and BVDs. And lastly, on the front page of the Daily Post, we have the attempt to rename a Mary Power plant shameful. We have Ama where he slams the government, saying that renaming the Mary Power plant is not really appropriate, and these are all being done for political gains. Now let's move into a story also trending. It says adolescents will be coming from Hold Ghana accountable for commitments towards you. So this is the Plan International Adolescents. They are saying that we need to listen to the adolescent right here, and also adolescents should be able to have conversations with policymakers to involve their ideas in policy making. And if these people are not being taken into consideration, there's going to be a shaking right there. So this time around, we need to listen to adolescent right here. Anytime we're making plans, anytime we're making policies, we should involve their brainstorming. We should involve their ideas in policies made right here in Ghana. So let's go listen to what they had to say in line with this topic.
It's important that adolescents and young people get a chance to interact with policymakers and share, what they want, share about their needs. They don't get to be involved in decision making generally. And we can't, support young and adolescent without listening to them, without hearing them about what they need, so we can adjust our policies, adjust our programs, adjust the services. It is also an opportunity to check on the commitment that have been made and see what progress is being made on those commitments. It is an opportunity to strengthen the accountability mechanism that is there, so we can really see if government commitment is to allocate 10% annually towards the health and well-being. Let's check what progress government is making.
Adolescent, they do have conversation with policymakers to ensure that they involve them in policy making. And when they do not involve them, I don't think anything they're going to say is going to be heard. And I think there's a good initiative coming in. So the youth out there and the adolescent, anytime we go on our social media platforms trying to throw weight behind the government, we should make the right choices, and our weddings are very important, so that anytime our policymakers are making policies in the country, these young ones are going to be heard. Now let's move away from that and move straight into BC. We all know about the Israel and Iraq war that came in, and it says Iran launches major attack on Israel, and we have 300 missile drones intercepted. And now we have the US coming in saying that missiles here. Thanks for the correction. So we have the US coming in saying that they threw their weight behind the Israelis. And now I quickly want to read something before we move into the full story coming in. So it says Israel's Yari Pinto reported on the Israel-Hamas war. So Iran launches a comprehensive air attack using missiles, drones, and cruise missiles from its territory and ports in Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. So Israel defense system, including the Iran drone, were tested under the barrage over 300 threat. Stays up to date with latest developments here on TBN. So quickly, let's move into the story coming in from BBC to have a fair idea about the development coming in this time around. So let's go check out the video and come back and delve into the story.
We have plenty of international reaction coming up to the events over the night. First of all, though, let's take a look at exactly what happened and take a listen to this. These are the sirens over Jerusalem and the explosions in the sky there over Israel. Some 300 drones and missiles fired towards Israel. And the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, saying that 99% of them were taken out of the sky, not just above Israel. These pictures next are from Jordan, allies helping here, the US, the UK, France, among those countries, shooting down objects over airspace outside Israel. Also Syria and Damascus, two similar scenes there. We have a look now at the Iron Dome heading back to Israel, which is the defense mechanism covering much of Israel. Interceptor missiles effectively fired from the ground there, leaving the trails in the sky up towards those drones and missiles. The assessment of the damage from Israel are very limited. No deaths, they say. Some infrastructure at a military base hit and a young girl injured and being treated. We had these pictures coming out of Iran, some government supporters celebrating there. We don't have any wider context for those pictures there. Iran saying this is a retaliation strike for what's widely believed to be an attack by Israel on the consulate in Damascus 2 weeks ago. And let's just show you a map of the region here so you get an idea of the scale of what's happened and potentially what's at stake. You can see Iran there and Israel and the distance between them. This is the very first time a direct attack on Israel from Iranian soil. Well, with me now, Jeremy Bowen, our international editor. As you can see, I'm our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. We're going to pick through exactly what this means. Jeremy, good to see you. So just tell us where we are, where the region stands right now.
Well, I think the region's looking at the Israeli war cabinet and seeing what it's going to decide to do next. The message coming from Israel's Western allies, particularly the US, also the British, Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, has just said that Britain was also involved in shooting down drones, and he said this is now a time for cool heads. In other words, message to Israel: you've got a victory here, bank it, hang on to it, do not escalate any further, because the risks of escalating, maybe a strike back onto Iranian territory, are very great. Israel has sustained a serious attack, but with a great deal of help from its allies, it has been able to withstand it. It was not a full-on assault in the way that perhaps it would have been had Hezbollah in Lebanon joined in with their massive arsenal of missiles that over the years the Iranians have helped them build up.
And Frank Gardner, if we can start with a similar question to you as well, your broad thoughts on where exactly the region stands now.
Okay, if you imagine a ladder, all right, with a lot of different rungs, we are halfway up that ladder of escalation. Israel could choose to go up it or down it, because right now we've seen a number of escalations, a number of red lines crossed, as Jeremy puts it, and this is certainly a red line, and it's the first time Iran and Israel have fired at each other, in this case Iran shooting directly at Israel. And despite the fact that there is restraint being urged on all sides, Israel's war cabinet is found what it calls a significant response. Now, it can do that in a number of ways. It could bide its time, strategic patience. It could hit back at its proxies, Iran's proxies like Hezbollah, as it has done, and others around the region. It could target the exact missile bases from which these drones and missiles were launched in Iran. That would be an escalation. Or it could go even further and do an all-out attack on Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps bases throughout Iran. That would be a major escalation, and one that would prompt, I think, a massive Iranian response. And that's not what anybody in the region wants. Everyone's calling for things to calm down now, but I'm not sure that Israel is going to let this one go, as it were.
Okay. Jeremy, can I just get your thoughts on the Iranian foreign minister coming out and speaking, basically the lines from Iran effectively saying that this current action is finished. They described it as a defensive action, but if there are any more attacks, then they will respond. What do you think of the messaging there?
Well, let's just rewind back to the 1st of April. That's when the attack took place on the Iranian diplomatic compound in Damascus, killing senior officers, senior generals, but I think more importantly for the Iranians, hitting ground they consider to be, and legally it is, Iranian soil. The Israelis have made an unconvincing argument that the presence of those officers in the building rendered it not a diplomatic premise, but a military position that it was okay to hit. That is not a convincing argument. So Iran made it very clear that they would respond. Question, how were they going to do it? The suggestion was that perhaps they might try and do something a little bit oblique, something indirect, but they've opted for this full-on attack. Now, the attack did not do a great deal of damage. Was that because they assumed, having signaled so clearly that they were going to do it, that so Israel, the Americans, the Brits and others could get ready? Or was that simply because they're simply not up to hurting Israel with its formidable air defenses along with its allies? So I think where we're at now is a time of great uncertainty. Really, the rules of the game in the Middle East have changed a lot since the Hamas attacks on the 7th of October. And now that Iran has, well, first the Israeli strike, Iran's response, what will Israel do next? We are very much in unknown territory here. But certainly I think it's absolutely clear that if a way is not found to stop this steady escalation into a wider war, all-out war in the Middle East, then it's going to keep on going in that direction, which would be absolutely catastrophic for all concerned.
Okay, Joe, we're going to come back to the kind of what happens next question in just a moment. Frank, just want to come to you on what did happen. Could you just talk us through the nature of the attack, what you make of the combination of the missiles and the drones, how Israel and indeed the Allies responded in a kind of technical way to shoot down so many, 300 plus from the skies? Sure.
Well, Israel had a massive advantage here that it knew it was coming. The US had already signaled this as from Wednesday night. It had probably intercepted communications using its powerful signals intelligence network. The attack came in two phases. 170 drones were launched. Now they're quite slow. They take several hours to reach Israel across the 1,500 kilometers of distance between Iran and Israel. But Iran also launched ballistic missiles, some of which, at least one of which, was intercepted outside the Earth's atmosphere. How were they intercepted? Well, there are a number of different ways. You mentioned Israel's Iron Dome there, which is its air defense system that has been shooting down a lot of rockets fired from Gaza, for example, by Hamas. But it's also got other methods, things called Arrow and the David slingshot, and it's got Patriot. But it was helped massively by the United States and to a lesser extent by the UK and Jordan. Jordan said that it intercepted a number of flying objects that entered its territory, i.e. Iranian missiles and drones. The RAF, the Britain's Royal Air Force, which was already operating along the borders of Syria and Iraq under something called Operation Shader, to counter any kind of advance or resurgence of so-called Islamic State, of ISIS, they also shot down a number of drones, so they would have gone quite a circuitous route. And the US Navy, which has got some very powerful warships in the region, in the Red Sea, they shot down some, and some of their jets took off. And also Israeli Air Force fighters took off from an air base in the south of Israel in the Negev to shoot them down. So it was a coordinated thing. Highly expensive, by the way. One estimate I've seen saying that this has cost Israel up to $1 billion. But Israel right now is patting itself on the back saying, we defeated this, we knocked out 99%. Make no mistake, Iran has got a massive arsenal of missiles, of ballistic missiles. It's got a whole lot more where these came from.
Okay. Jeremy, where do we go from here then? We have international meetings, we've got the War Cabinet in Israel itself, G7 convening. What does happen next?
Well, interesting that when Joe Biden talked about convening the G7, so they're all going to be in front of their computer screens, he talked about for a diplomatic response. That's clearly what he wants. But Israel's War Cabinet has many times in the last 6 months defied the will of Joe Biden. Will they regard this issue as one in which they are able to do that, or will they feel that because of all the enormous amounts of help that they actually got last night, that actually they owe their allies one and they need to pull in their spikes in terms of confronting them and going? I did notice very early on that right-wing voices in Israel, and those similar voices sustain the government, in terms of votes in the parliament there, were calling for a response, saying this is a tough neighborhood. Not responding would be weak. If Israel's weak, it will be seen as vulnerable and will be attacked again. So that's the debate that they will be having there in Israel. Do what the Americans and the Brits and others want, or push back harder.
Jeremy, thank you very much for that. International editor Jeremy Bowen and our security correspondent Frank Gardner, thank you as well.
You guys are the best in the whole damn world, man. The whole world. No, that's not hyperbole, man. Both these squadrons, you're incredible, absolutely incredible. You made an enormous difference, potentially saving a lot of lives, and thanks to extraordinary skill, the United States helped Israel take down nearly all those incoming missiles. You're remarkable.
Mr. President, we thank you for your words. This is Lieutenant Colonel Curtis Culver, 494th Fighter Squadron Commander, and we're mighty proud to have our part in that contribution, sir.
You're just incredible. I apologize for my enthusiasm. I'm supposed to be much more reserved.
Not at all, sir.
But I'm
proud to be an American.
Well, you make me proud. And I'm not just saying it. I swear to God, you're incredible.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Keep it going. Stay safe, man.
Okay, so the video that played now gives you a fair idea of, this whole back and forth happening between Israel and Iran, and now you have a fair idea. We're going to post these videos on our social media platforms. Going right there, let's not just stay in Ghana, let's move internationally and know the things that are happening right there. Now, let's move away from all this Matters Horizon stories. We have Precious Azuma standing by with happenings in the world of sports. So let's go for a break. When we come back, she's going to join us in the studio.